Welcome back to my 31 Plymouth project. Last time we replaced the hardware in all four wheels. This time we're going to go and replace the hard lines that go and connect everything together. Now that we're underneath the car and looking at this, let's start with the easy bit. Just bend that open. And there you go. And we have a winner. Alright. I doubt it. I very much doubt that. Alright. Grab my pipe wrenches. I'll be right back. Now, I suppose I could just cut the line, and depending on how nicely it plays right now, that might be the option, but disassemble things as neatly as possible. Alright, so let's go take the front lines off. Drive shaft. So what I have laid out here on the driveway is the brake lines to the car. You can see here's the line that goes to the driver wheel, the line that goes over to the passenger wheel, which someone had the brilliant idea of zip tying in a bunch of spots the wire harness. And then you have the one line that goes all the way to the back, where it goes to a soft line, and then the line that you saw us take off the rear axle. Now this all comes off of one T that these three lines connect to, and that makes it a single circuit. I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm going to put in two T's so that it's upgradable to a dual circuit, or whether I'm going to use the current T because everything came apart rather nicely. Alright, the first brake line we're going to work on is the main one coming out of the master cylinder going to the T. Originally it came out the bottom of the master cylinder underneath the gearbox and then did a 90 into the T. Because of the differences between the new master cylinder and the old one, we're going to come out the front, which means we'll have to do a 90 and a 90 to get around the steering box, and then down here a 90 going in. So let's work on getting this first 90 done. There you go. Nice smooth 90. I'm going to go take this to the car and see about where we would need to make the next 90. Alright, so we're going to want this to go this way. Alright, now lastly we'll have to find where we need to put the bend to come back into the T. Alright, now the tricky point is that needs to be the straight part, so the curve has to be back here. So. Seeing how I keep having trouble kinking the line, this is a rather big pipe to be making such sharp bends on. I'm going to try to do a 45 and a 45 to make this final turn. Alright, this is the cutting tool. This one's nice because it's real small. A lot of them are these big bulky tools. These are nice for working in car. They don't need a lot of space. What you basically do is you tighten down, you spin it, tighten it down some more, spin it, tighten it down, spin it. You keep doing that until the pipe cuts off. There you go. Alright, this is the flaring tool. There's two types of flares. There's the single flare and double flare. Double flare is better, but I don't have a flaring tool for that, so we'll go with single flare. Now how this works is you have the die and a press. You slide in the brake line until it's flush with this face, and then that clamps onto it, pushes, and flares out the end of the brake line. Always make sure to have the tube nut on. Clamp this down in here. This goes into here. Now you got to be careful not to split the brake line when you're pressing. That's something that's easily done on harder lines like steel, but it's one of the reasons why the double flare is better and less likely to split anything. Okay, there's your flare, here's your tube nut, and the flare looks good. This is the next line we're going to make. This is going from the T to the front driver's wheel. We're going to be making it out of this copper tubing. This is really nice stuff to work with. It's easy to bend, easy to straighten out. Very workable material. First step is figuring out roughly how much of this we are going to need. Let's Say about there. And now we have a brake line to go into the car. So these are our new soft lines. They connect the hard lines to the wheels or the axle. The top two are for the front wheels and the bottom one is for the rear axle. One thing I wanted to point out is these really nifty banjo bolt connections. They allow us to connect to the front wheel cylinders to the soft line. Took me some time to find them, but I found a gentleman on a old car forum that had a few of them. I was able to buy them off of them. So let's go and install all this. The trick is to get this lined up where it's not going to be a problem. Now, what has taken so long and a lot of researching to do is this length, because when the wheel turns, you need more length on this side for when it turns left than you do when it turns right. A lot of work. See how this goes. All right, we got our brake line. The hole that it goes through is right there, and the T is right there. Okay, after a fair bit of fighting, got both ends in, lines installed. It's not touching the frame anywhere. Should be good to go. Off to the next one. This brake line here is going to be the biggest pain in the butt, and it always, on every car, is the biggest pain in the butt because it goes from the driver's side to the passenger side front wheel, and there's always an engine and a radiator and a bunch of accessories in the way. So let's start out like we did the other ones with getting our length of tubing. Now this pipe got a fair bit of bending and tugging getting it out of the car, so it's not going to be perfect, but I'll at least be in the right position to get it back into the car, and then we can bend it and finesse it, keep it away from things that are going to get it in trouble. For this bit here, I figured it was just easier to take the hood off see how we can snake this through everything. Not working on a car until you're bleeding. Okay, I got that routed through, and right underneath the balancer there's a clip that I got it clamped into. Now we just need to trim off the excess on the other side, flange it, bolt it together. The next line we'll do goes from the T on the rear end to the driver's side rear wheel cylinder. Now this line here has all this excess, and it has this really interesting banjo fitting. I'm going to keep the fitting, but I'm not going to use it. With these, and because of the T, we will be using a different sized brake line along with different sized tube nuts. Alright, we will put this in here so nothing crawls up into the tubing. Alright, so now for this, we know we want to go from here to here, and it's essentially a straight shot. So we'll go that long, go about ½ an inch longer. There you go. So for this next brake line, we're going to make it a little bit longer than it is here, because if you remember correctly, it was only held in by one clip here and then just kind of bent around, where I want to actually incorporate those other two clips. So with 3 brake lines left to do, figured now would be a good time to put the soft line for the rear axle. Now this one's a little bit different. Instead of having a nut, it's made to have a clip on it. Couldn't find one that was an exact fit for this car, but we'll figure something out for this. The other end is a molded T, so we will install this. Now I noticed one end has kind of a crest on it. I'm assuming that is made to go on the axle. Alright, back underneath the car. Now we're going to have to radius out here a little bit. So, put that little bit of a bend in. And then we will pull this cap out. Alright, let's tighten this down. Now the next one is going to come here, go through these 3 brackets, and then to that wheel cylinder over there. Okay, now the only line left is the one that goes from the back here all the way to the front. For that, I'm going to take the coil, I'm going to stretch it completely out, we'll fish it through and flange it here in the car. Now I'm going to cut and crimp that, and all this line will eventually be tied down with little clips and self-tapping screws. Okay, let's see how this fits. Start it in there. All right, it is not going to win any kind of Pebble Beach award, but next step will be pressurizing the system, seeing if it will hold pressure, and then power bleeding. So here's a power bleeder. Just a pressure bottle that you would put the brake fluid into, and then a tube that connects to your master cylinder. I had to make one because, well, they don't make them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this up. I'm going to pressurize it with no fluid, and then check this gauge to see if the pressure drops. Pressure drops, we have a leak. Got to figure out the leak. If I did everything correctly, it should hold pressure. Once I have proven that, I'll fill this up with fluid, pressurize it again. Now, if you remember, when you're not hitting the brake pedal, the reservoir and the brake lines are connected to allow the fluid flow back in. Well, if you pressurize externally with this, the reservoir, it will push the fluid through all the lines. So what I'll do is I will fill this up with fluid, I'll fill this up with fluid, and then pressurize it, and then go starting from the furthest brake line to the nearest, which would be this wheel here, bleed it until all the air is out of the line. Once all the air is out of the lines, brake should work. Now what's always a pain in the butt about these things is there's no swivel connections. So you usually have to twist the line. Now, since I made this, I'm going to loosen this, tighten this down, and then slide the hose on top of it. All right. Yeah. When you have a leak, soapy water works really good at finding it. Okay, it's been a few days of chasing down various leaks. I want to show you some of the more noteworthy ones. So here, good view. So here is probably one of the biggest changes that I've made. The T that came with the car, somebody had stripped it out, which explains why all the paint has been peeled up. It was probably leaking. I couldn't find a replacement, so I took two T's and tied them together, and that got me all the connections that I needed. Probably the biggest change I've made to this car is using these banjo fittings. When I tried to go straight in with the brake line, it just would leak. So with those couple changes and all the other fittings snugged up real tight, let's get started with actually bleeding the brakes. Won't be needing the air compressor anymore. Okay, so we'll start by filling the master cylinder. The brake fluid over time absorbs water, so you always want to use an unopened jar of brake fluid. And it's a very good paint remover, so you want to be very careful to avoid spills. Okay, so we got everything hooked up. I'm going to hold the power bleeder above the master cylinder, try to get the air out of the line. Alright, so pull this little rubber boot off. Set it somewhere where we will lose it later. Take my little rubber hose. Oh, come on. There we go. So I just have an empty bottle here. I'll take the hose. I'll stick it in the bottle. And then we simply just crack open the bleeder, and the pressure from the bottle up front will push all the air out, replacing it with fluid. Now you do this until either you don't see any more air coming out, or until you lose pressure, where you tighten it back up, go pump up the bottle again. Yep, I think that's pretty good. Tighten this nice and secure. Nothing's worse than forgetting to close the bleeder all the way. Makes a mess, and it allows air back into the line. You do not want air in the line. Alright. Set that there. Put the little rubber boot on. Get set up for the next one. Alright, over onto the next wheel. Take the little rubber cap off. Fight to get this on. I changed into a new bottle. That other bottle was starting to get full. Let's see if we can route this a little bit better so it doesn't whack us in the face with brake fluid. Crack open the bleeder. Alright. Now, when I first opened it, I saw some bubbles, but I think that was just air in this line that while I was pumping it back up, floated back up to the top. Tighten this down. Pull this off, let it drain back into the thing. Put the little rubber cap on. Alright, rear brakes are done, and if I had pressure on it, they would work. So here we are at the right front wheel. Pull off the little rubber boot, install our hose. Crack open the bleeder. Alright. Off to the last oil. Okay, so last but not least, let's do the driver wheel. Alright, that should be that. Tighten this down nice and tight. Put this cap on. Alright, so now I'm going to go and disconnect everything, put the cap, the official cap on the master cylinder, and we'll see how this all works. Alright, let's break something. There you go. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.